Hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Mattison, and today we're going to be discussing the behind the scenes for Glen and the elephant. So, growing up in Port Elizabeth, we were so lucky to have Addo Elephant Park, which is a national park in South Africa, right on our doorstep, pretty much. And this was one of the parks that we would frequent like quite often, um, just because it was this, very close. And obviously, Addo Elephant Park, it was one of the parks that there's just so many elephants. It is so beautiful, and such an experience to see them. And when you're so little, to see something so big is just, yeah, it's just quite wonderful. But when you have a lot of elephants, you also have the potentiality of um, a bull starting to run at your car, right? So I mean, it. How I'm saying it, I guess it doesn't sound that terrifying, but when it's your car getting chased, it is a whole other story. And it was so funny. We have family in Switzerland, and they came over one holiday and went to Addo with us. And we had a camcorder, and they we were videoing, and this bull. So we we're going up this hill in the park, and the next thing, and when I say hill, it was very steep, okay? And the next thing, this bull is running over the top, coming down the road. And we all were like, ah! And then the camcorders dropped. It's like you can hear the cars, because we were also in different cars. I think we had two cars, okay? But obviously the camcorder's in the one. And you just hear the reversing sound right of the car, and then people shouting reverse, reverse. But it was actually a very terrifying, shame. And I mean, and that was probably one of their first experiences of elephants. So, no, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's just because I actually remember the video, because we obviously watched it quite a few times, and also having lived through the experience. But the best thing to do, obviously, is when it's charging, you try and take a side road, and then try and like hide behind a bush. And in Addo, you had a lot of those sorts of side roads where it kind of was like a little loop, so you could reverse up it, and then as you could then kind of slowly go around, and then kind of miss the charging bull, right? Um, and this isn't throwing shade on elephants. Like, you're in their natural habitat. He was angry at something, and that's why he charged. Um, and everyone was safe. No, there wasn't a. It was just obviously the big scare of of being charged. But John, especially if it's mating season, if there's babies, um, you have to just be very respectful and mindful of them. They are gentle giants, and if you provoke them, they will tell you that they'll show you that they are angry and they're not happy with what you're doing. And I think that is well within their rights. And yeah, so how, okay, let's talk about Glen. So through my work with Veterans for Wildlife, I interviewed Glen Stain, and he does a lot of amazing work training rangers, and upskilling them with regards to anti-poaching. So he educates them, and gives them skills not only to protect themselves, but to protect the animals on the reserve in which they operate. Um, he is now a consultant, and yeah, I really wish him all the best with his work. Honestly, I think it's amazing. Yeah, I love hearing these sorts of things. And he's also a ex-Royal Marine, I think commando. I'm not too sure about that. But yeah, he did serve time in the war overseas, and yeah, really, really amazing person. And then Heard. So, you know by now that I've volunteered at Care for Wild, and little Kanyisa, she turned 2 this year. And when she was rescued from the snare, she was initially brought to Care for Wild. Obviously, being an elephant and not a rhino, because their speciality, even though they will gladly assist with any animal that needs help, you know, Heard has the speciality of working with elephants. So I'm not too sure how it all happened, but eventually she was moved from Care for Wild to Heard to start her healing and rehabilitation process. She was severely injured by a snare, and I think for many people, you know, it was touch and go. Like her wounds were so severe because it caught through her mouth, if I remember correctly. So it was around her head, through her mouth, and it was such a sad story. Like her herd had to leave her because she couldn't obviously break free. She was too small, and the more she pulled, the more it would cut into her mouth and into her head and her ears and stuff. So she was in such a dire situation. And I mean, the trauma of your family leaving you, I could not imagine what she went through. But luckily, after being rescued, she is now in such a loving, healthy, supportive environment, and the herd that is there took her in. And it's honestly, please, I'm going to put all the links in the menu above, so to Herd's website, to their Instagram, to their Facebook, and their YouTube. So they also have a YouTube channel. Please go check it out. It is like, honestly, when you see the videos, like there was a video where she was walking along and then she tripped and she kind of fell, and then the whole herd like came around her, got her up, and then checked that she was okay, and then they went on with her. It is the most beautiful thing. Like, I want to cry. It is just to see how she is not their own by flesh and blood, but how they've taken her in is the most amazing thing to see. And we can learn so much from elephants in this sort of way, where it's like she needs their help, and without question, without any sort of like, are we sure? Like, they just took her in and loved her. Like, no matter what. Like, it was just unconditional love from the beginning. And that is just so beautiful. So, obviously, when I wrote this book this year. After I'd finished illustrating the first 5 books, I wrote this book, and then I illustrated it. And so I actually wrote the date here. May. Sorry, I was calculating which month is the 5th. Sorry. So I illustrated this in May, so I possibly wrote the book in April. And yeah, and it had to be Heard. The amazing work that they're doing with elephants is, yeah, it's phenomenal. And I love seeing all the updates of little Kanyisa. And then since Kanyisa arrived, another little elephant arrived named Fenya. You'll hear a bit more about her in the dedication. She came in with a similar situation as Kanyisa, but unfortunately her dehydration and just the state she was in and the trauma and her wounds and everything, she didn't survive and she passed away. So that's just a very sad thing when you lose an animal. So part of the dedication is to her as well. So let's just dive into the illustration. So this is the first illustration, which is kind of like a field guide. And like you can see, I didn't draw all of the footprints, because then when I went onto my computer, I would like copy and then I would switch it around and then paste. And because I wasn't quite getting them right. And then also the spacing, I spaced these out a bit more. But yeah, and then he spotted the poacher's tracks, which is obviously not what you want to see when you are in the bush. This is a very sad illustration for me. You see these sorts of images when you, like in Kenya, when they burn the ivory that they have taken back from the poachers. I mean, that takes a lot of tusks, guys, to build these sort of structures to burn. And they don't just burn one, it's like several of those types of structures. So you can imagine how many elephants died due to poaching in order to have something like that. So this is a little baby now alone. His mom was poached, and Glenn found him with his mom. Her mom, sorry, I'm saying his, and in the book it's a her. And then Glenn blindfolded her just to calm her down, in order to have her moved. So this is going to look like a very funny image. And the reason why it looks funny is because I actually used this image to make two. So obviously the first elephant has its hands up and is it standing? We'll see in the final. But the one sitting, the one standing, the one has its arms down, the one has its arms up. And then we've got the sun here, and it's here because I wanted this extra space, I guess. And I think that this image is the image that we all hope to see very, very, very soon. And that is that poaching ceases or nearly draws to a halt because the demand overseas stops. That is the day we all pray for. That the demand for ivory, for pangolin scales, for shark fins, for rhino horn stops. And this is beautiful. So this is when she's all grown up and she now has a little baby of her own. The next generation. Oh, shivers, guys. Sorry. That just makes me happy when you see them safe and loved and cared for at places like Herd. Places that just love them no matter what and don't give up on them no matter what, and fight for them every day to make sure that they are safe and that they don't have to be scared anymore. Because I think that another thing that people talk about is elephants never forget, and that is so true. They never forget. And yeah, so little Kanyisa will Hopefully she won't remember that. Maybe she was too small, just like when we're little. I don't know. But one would hope that all that she really remembers now is the good times of meeting her new herd. Here we go. Here we go. Yes, the one with the arms up is standing. I was right. So this is when the baby elephant meets its new friends. So it has a new friend now. And the final one. And I was a bit worried about the shape, but if you look at an adult elephant, it has these like really defined lines on its face, like its structure, and I tried to bring that in. Yeah. So I quickly want to read the dedication. So I dedicate this book firstly to Glenn Steyn for his continued work and dedication to save Africa's wildlife through the training of rangers in Africa. Secondly, I dedicate this book to Fenya, who passed away after being saved from a snare. She lived out her last days at herd. Safe, cared for, and loved. You'll always be remembered, little one. Yeah, she'll always be remembered, guys. Thank you so much for listening to me today. Okay, bye.